We have a prediction so important in our very first video of this series that if somebody in your league doesn't have this, we guarantee you this could be a game changer. And if you haven't been watching our breaking news series, this person may very well still be available because he was just brought up from the practice squad. And I guarantee you, if you're the first to scoop this up, this is going to change your entire season. So make sure you stick around till the end. Welcome in, everybody. This is the first in our series of fantasy NFL football. First video is going to be running backs. We are going to be putting this series out every week during the entire season. So make sure you subscribe, like those videos, be the first to get the breaking information. And a lot of this information is put out in our breaking news series. So make sure you turn on those notifications because it's important you're the first one that gets all the injury updates. All right, first up in our running back series, we are obviously going to start off with the let's start them. And the first one might be a little bit of a surprise. We are going with the Saints, Alvin Kamara. This might be a little bit of a surprise because last 2 weeks, Alvin Kamara has had a pretty rough couple of starts, has not been producing well. But, and we know Alvin Kamara has also been getting a limited amount of use, only getting a handful more touches than his backup. But the Giants have allowed the fourth most rushing yards in the league and also the second most rushing touchdowns in the league. So we expect to see a pretty strong run game this week against one of the worst rushing defense teams. And the Giants have been letting up an average of a solid 6 yards per attempt. And they are also the fourth highest in explosive runs. So expect Alvin Kamara to see a lot of action and produce a lot of points for you this week. We expect Alvin Kamara to have his best game of the season. Up next is probably another big surprise. We're going with David Montgomery of the Lions. Last week was bad. Last week, David Montgomery came up with a horrendous 1.2 points. But the week before that, he came up with a solid 29.4 points. Granted, Gibbs has been getting a lot of the action these last couple weeks, but with the Bengals defense absolutely struggling to stop the run in any way, we see Montgomery getting a good amount of action and a lot of solid points to help you out this week. Up next is, I'm sure, much less of a surprise. We are going with Cam Skattebo of the Giants. This solid rookie has been having a great season. The Giants have been relying on him a lot, and he is a dual threat. He's been having a very solid running season, has also been a good reliance on in the passing game. He has brought in a solid 13 points for 3 games in a row. He's got the third most red zone carries on the season, and only Josh Jacobs has more goal line attempts this season. Now, Saints are only in the top 12 of rushing yards against, so we expect Skattebo to have a great game and bring you in a lot of points this week. All right, up next is a combination for both a running back and probably your floater. Ramon Stevenson of the Patriots and Trayvon Henderson. The Patriots are facing a tough team against the only team left in the AFC that's undefeated, but their only weakness is their run game. The Bills are ranked 8th worst in the league for run, so we expect a running-heavy game up against Buffalo. Stevenson has been averaging a solid 10.5 touches per game, so we recommend using him as a good, solid floater. All right, and last one, and probably a big surprise, we are going with Woody Marks of the Texans versus the Ravens. To say the least, the Ravens have been having a subpar season against the run. They are 5th worst in rushing yards against, and they are 2nd worst in rushing touchdowns against. And that was before the defense got beat up. The defense is beat up. They've had multiple injuries, and they got new players in that are going to be rusty. So we think this is a very solid pick. Should get you a lot of points this week. Now let's go to the other side of the ball. Who are we sitting this week? First one, unfortunately, is going to be kind of obvious, but we have to explain it. Chase Brown of the Bengals. Unfortunately, he is in a horrible situation. He has not gotten more than 50 yards all season, but this is mostly due to the situation. The Bengals are just having an absolutely horrible season. Now that Burrow is down, the Bengals basically have no run defense. They know that the Bengals essentially have no huge threat with receiving yards, so they're more than comfortable with just using low men on the backfield, single coverage, and they're just putting plenty of people up in the line, basically stopping the Bengals' run offense. So, unfortunately, I hope you guys don't have any Bengals running backs, and if you do, I would sit them. Again, with the situation with Burrow down, the Bengals just don't have any real threat. Starting quarterback is just not going well. It's just a bad overall season for the Bengals, but with so many people sitting on the line and them comfortable just letting the backfield do its thing, the Bengals probably aren't going to have much of a running game all season. Next up, this might be a little bit of a surprise. We are sitting Jordan Mason from the Vikings against the Browns. This might seem like a surprise for what is a struggling Browns team, but let's look at the stats. Season, if the Browns have had one true highlight, it has been their run defense. Let's look at the stats this season. Chase Brown has only managed 43 yards. Derrick Henry had 23 rushing yards against the Browns. Josh Jacobs, 30 rushing yards. And David Montgomery, remember that 1.2 yards I mentioned earlier? David Montgomery had 12 rushing yards. And the Browns have only allowed 2 explosive run yards all season. One of the very, very few highlights of the Browns is their rush defense. We don't suggest using Jordan Mason this week. All right, up next, and this is coming very close to our highlight that we're going to bring up at the end of the broadcast. If you have not figured it out, it has a lot to do with this game coming up. But the next one we are sitting is Tony Pollard. This is probably not a surprise. The Titans have just struggled mightily on all ends, both offense and defense. Tony Pollard has had a solid 18.5 touches per game, but he has barely broken 11 points per game, and the only time he broke it, he barely got 13, and that was when he got his one rushing touchdown. So, I'm sorry to say it, but avoid the Titans at all costs. They have no highlights. Nobody on either side of the field is really playing well. They're 0-4. Titans, we're hoping they would bring it around the season, but they just seem to be struggling mightily everywhere. Next one we are sitting Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco had a really strong game last game, but the Chiefs are rotating 3 different running backs right now with Xavier Worthy back last week. We expect the Chiefs to have a pretty receiving strong game this week, and with 3 different running backs in the rotation on a regular basis, we don't expect Pacheco to pull a lot of points, even though we probably have a half-decent game this week. Last but not least, with the exception of our big announcement, we are sitting Zach Charbonnet. The Bucs have the #1 run defense, and so we expect the run game to be limited, and with K9 in the game, we expect him to have a large majority of the touches. We expect Zach Charbonnet not only to have limited numbers due to the Bucs' outstanding #1 defense, but we expect K9. K-Walk is probably going to get a large majority of the work this week. And now, for the big announcement, we have been promising you, this is probably a sneaky move you can make. I almost guarantee you, if the people in your fantasy league do not subscribe to us, you can make up some points. If you are already on the lead, take this and run away with it. If you guys are not subscribed and you have not heard the breaking news, the Cardinals backfield have had a horrible season. Starting running back James Conner is out for the season. He only made it to week 3, and then last week, his backup, Trey Benson. They just announced the other day that Trey Benson is on the injured reserve, which means he is going to be out for 4 weeks. And who are the Cardinals playing this week? We mentioned earlier, they are playing the Titans. The Titans have the 28th worst rush defense. They are letting up an average of 141.5 yards per game. And they also have the 28th worst scoring defense, letting up an average of 30 points. They just elevated Michael Carter from the practice squad. So this guy was on the practice squad, and his first start, they were playing the 28th worst running and 28th worst scoring defense. Go get this guy. Activate him. We promise you a great call for this week. Michael Carter. Go get him. Make sure you play him. And we promise you this is gonna be a huge playmaker this week. Alright, thanks everybody for listening. Those are our predictions for running back. Again, this series will be coming out every Thursday. Make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications.